Rot in jail, Mom, while we enjoy every dollar you left behind. Those words didn't just echo inside the courtroom, they shattered something deep inside me. As the officer locked cold metal handcuffs around my wrists, my heart sank lower than I thought possible. I wasn't staring at an enemy. I was staring at my own son. Ethan stood there smiling, laughing, victorious. Before we begin, just a small request. Hit the like button to support our stories. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and how you're doing. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new story. Your one like, one comment, and one subscribe truly encourages us and keeps us going. Beside Ethan was Brittany, his wife, clinging to his arm like she'd won a prize. She leaned close, whispered something, and he burst into laughter again, louder this time, making sure I heard it. The judge slammed the gavel, demanding silence, but it didn't matter. The decision was final. 3 years in federal prison. Financial fraud. Embezzlement. Crimes I never committed. Every document was forged. Every witness was coached. Every piece of evidence was manufactured. Yet the story they told was convincing enough to destroy me. Ethan played the role of the betrayed son perfectly. Brittany cried on the stand, painting herself as a helpless victim. And the court believed them. As they stood up to leave, Ethan wrapped his arm around Brittany's shoulders. They walked toward the exit like champions, already celebrating. Brittany turned back once and looked at me with pure contempt, not satisfaction. Not relief, but hatred. To her, I was just an obstacle that had finally been removed. They were probably planning a celebration dinner already. Expensive wine, luxury restaurants, maybe even a vacation, all funded by the money I had spent decades saving through sacrifice and discipline. The deputy yanked my arm, forcing me to stand. At 70 years old, every movement felt like punishment. But I refused to cry. I wouldn't give them that pleasure. Not here, not now. As I was led through the hallway, people whispered. Some looked at me with pity. Others with disgust. Even old friends couldn't meet my eyes. The shame weighed heavier than the chains on my wrists. I was taken into a small processing room with peeling walls and bolted plastic chairs. Behind a metal desk sat an older correctional officer, Frank Miller. His face was worn, his eyes tired, but kind. While he reviewed my paperwork, I reached into the inner pocket of my old tweed jacket. Hidden there was a folded note. A secret no one knew. A final move they never expected, because the name written on that tiny piece of paper had the power to stop my prison transfer and destroy the people who betrayed me. Officer Frank Miller sat quietly behind his desk, flipping through my file with the slow patience of someone who had seen too many broken lives pass through that room. The air smelled of disinfectant and resignation. My wrists ached inside the cuffs, but my mind was racing. Carefully, while his attention was on the papers, I slipped the folded note from my jacket pocket and placed it beside my documents. It looked ordinary, just another piece of paperwork. But it carried the weight of my entire future. Frank stood up to get me a cup of water. The moment his back turned, my heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. When he returned and sat down, his eyes dropped to the desk. He frowned. Then he picked up the paper. I watched his expression change. Confusion, then surprise, and finally disbelief. His lips moved silently as he read the name written there. Robert Sterling, he whispered. I lifted my eyes and nodded once. That single nod froze him in place. Everyone in this state knew that name. Robert Sterling wasn't just rich. He was untouchable. A man whose companies shaped cities, whose influence reached courtrooms and government offices alike. Frank looked at me again, truly looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time. You're telling me he's your husband? Yes, I said softly. But my son doesn't know. I explained quickly. After years of widowhood and loneliness, I met Robert at an art gallery. to grieving people talking about a painting turned into coffee. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into something I never expected to feel again: hope. We married quietly. No announcements. No family present. Robert had enemies. He needed discretion. And I made the mistake of keeping the truth from Ethan, thinking I'd tell him when the time was right. That time never came. Frank swallowed hard. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone. "If this is real," he said quietly, "this changes everything." "It is real," I replied. "And if you call him, he will come." Frank hesitated. Then he told me about his life: a sick wife, a struggling daughter, grandchildren sleeping on a living room floor. A man who had done everything right and still lost. Finally, he exhaled. "I'll make the call." The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice answered. "Sterling." Frank nearly dropped the phone. "Mr. Sterling," he stammered. "This is Officer Miller. I'm calling about your wife." There was a long, terrifying silence. Then the voice changed. "What happened to Cecilia?" Because the moment Robert Sterling learned the truth, the justice system itself began to shake. The moment Robert Sterling heard my voice, the room seemed to change. "Cecilia," he said, no longer the calm businessman everyone feared, but a husband fighting panic. "Where are you? Who did this to you?" I told him everything: the trial, the lies, the sentence. I told him my own son had testified against me. My voice shook, but Robert's didn't. It went quiet, controlled, dangerous. "Put the officer back on the line," he said. Frank lifted the phone with unsteady hands. "Listen carefully," Robert said. "My wife is not leaving that building. She is not being transferred anywhere. If anyone moves her before I arrive with my legal team, there will be consequences." Frank tried to explain procedures, schedules, paperwork, but Robert cut him off. "In 10 minutes, a judge will issue a temporary suspension. In 15, a court order will freeze this transfer. You don't need permission. You need to stay exactly where you are." The call ended. The silence afterward felt unreal. Frank sat down slowly, like someone whose world had just shifted. He looked at me with something close to awe. "I've never seen anything like that." 7 minutes later, his desk phone rang. "Yes, sir." "Understood." Immediately. He hung up and stared at me. "Your transfer is suspended. A judge just signed the order." For the first time since my arrest, I smiled. Less than an hour later, the processing room door opened. A sharply dressed man entered with purpose: Maurice Flores, one of the most feared criminal defense attorneys in the state. 2 assistants followed, arms full of files. Behind them came Robert. My husband crossed the room without hesitation and dropped to his knees in front of me, ignoring the cuffs, the dirty floor, the stairs. "I'm here," he whispered. "I should have been here sooner." Tears finally fell. Not from fear, from relief. Morris wasted no time. Documents were reviewed. Inconsistencies highlighted. Digital records flagged. The case against me began collapsing piece by piece. That night, Robert had me escorted to a secure residence while an emergency appeal was filed. Armed security surrounded the property. No chances were taken. The next morning, Morris arrived with explosive news. One of the prosecution's key witnesses, the accountant, had confessed. He admitted fabricating financial records under Ethan and Brittany's instructions: emails, transfers, altered dates. All fake. "Charges will be dropped today," Morris said, "and arrest warrants are being prepared." I closed my eyes. Justice was finally catching up. But Robert wasn't done. "They thought they won," he said quietly. "Now they're about to celebrate." Because, while my son raised a champagne glass that night, police were preparing to crash his victory. And I was going to watch it happen. The celebration was in full swing. Music echoed through the private club. Champagne flowed freely, and laughter filled the air. At the center of it all stood Ethan, confident, polished, and completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. He was making a toast when the room slowly fell silent. Not because the music stopped, but because people were staring. Whispers spread like fire as Robert and I stepped inside. Conversations died mid. Glasses froze halfway to lips. No one expected to see me there. The woman who was supposed to be sitting in a prison cell. Ethan turned. The color drained from his face. Brittany clutched his arms so hard her knuckles turned white. I could see panic racing through their eyes as reality caught up with them. I walked forward calmly. Every step felt heavy, but steady. Enjoying the celebration, I asked quietly, "It's being paid for with my money." Ethan tried to speak, but nothing came out. Brittany recovered first, lifting her chin. "This is a private event. You need to leave." Robert smiled coldly. "This club answers to me." That's when Morris stepped forward. Earlier today, he announced, all charges against Cecilia Dawson were officially dismissed. The court has issued arrest warrants for Ethan Dawson and Brittany Dawson on multiple counts of fraud, forgery, perjury, and conspiracy. The doors opened. Police officers entered. Chaos erupted. Brittany screamed as officers moved in. Ethan stood frozen, disbelief written across his face as handcuffs snapped around his wrists. The same cold sound I remembered from the courtroom. As they were led away, Ethan turned back toward me, searching my face for mercy. I felt it then, the grief, the love, the memories of a little boy who once called me Mom. But I didn't stop them. Because justice isn't cruelty, it's truth. The media storm followed immediately. Cameras, headlines, public outrage. The story spread everywhere. The son who framed his own mother. The wife who orchestrated it all. But for me, the noise faded. That night, I stood beside Robert in a quiet garden, the sky dark and peaceful. "I lost my son," I said softly. "No," Robert replied. "You lost the lie, and you survived." Weeks later, the court restored everything. My name, my freedom, my dignity. My son and his wife faced real prison sentences. The fortune they tried to steal never touched their hands. At 70 years old, I learned something powerful. Never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. Because when the truth finally rises, it destroys everything built on lies. And sometimes, the strongest revenge isn't hatred, it's watching justice arrive right on time. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so more people remember. No matter how old you are, it's never too late to stand up for yourself.